Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating concept, something we can call the progress paradox. We tend to think of the digital age as this great equalizer, right? A time when literally all of human knowledge is just sitting right there at our fingertips. But underneath that super optimistic narrative, there's actually a hidden, multi-layered reality. We're going to decode the modern digital divide, and as you'll see, it's way, way more complex than just who happens to own a smartphone and who doesn't. So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the evolution of media, then unpack the three-level digital divide, compare policy rhetoric versus reality, and finally look at designing true digital inclusion. All right, let's jump right into part one, the evolution of media, from print to digital. To really understand where we are, we have to look at this fascinating historical continuum of democratized knowledge. Think back to the 15th century. Johannes Gutenberg's printing press absolutely revolutionized the world, right? It mass-produced text and made books accessible to a much broader audience. Then zoom forward to the 20th century. Broadcast media like radio and television completely changed the game, bringing real-time audio and moving images right into our living rooms. And finally, the 1990s brought the digital revolution. The internet spread like wildfire, transforming the landscape into the incredibly rapid, user-generated digital world we're so used to today. Now, as this source highlights, this shift from print to digital empowered users in ways we couldn't have imagined. It kicked off an era of rapid information exchange and completely reshaped our media consumption patterns. But here's the catch. While it created this unprecedented accessibility and interactivity, it actually set the stage for a dramatic paradox in societal equity. And that is exactly what we are dealing with right now. Which brings us to part two, the three-level digital divide. And spoiler alert, it goes way beyond just hardware. Okay, so the digital divide has evolved way past that old simplistic idea of the haves and the have-nots. It's not just a tech issue anymore. It's actually this massive interconnected socioeconomic puzzle. And it's built on three specific cumulative levels: access, literacy, and ultimately participation. Let's break those down. Level one is the access divide. This is pretty much exactly what it sounds like: the unequal distribution of physical resources. We're talking about internet connectivity, mobile devices, or, hey, even just reliable electricity. In a lot of low and middle income regions, cost is still a massive barrier. But it's not just there. Even in developed countries, marginalized groups often face functional exclusion just because of poor connectivity or unstable networks. Literally millions of people are left completely disconnected from the basic prerequisites of modern society. Then we hit the second level, the literacy divide. And this is where things get absolutely crucial. Because it's not just about knowing how to turn a screen on, right? It's about the cognitive, critical, and technical abilities you actually need to use technology meaningfully. Think back to the COVID-19 pandemic for a second. Simply handing a student a laptop didn't magically ensure they could learn remotely, not if they lacked the digital competencies to navigate online education securely and effectively. A lot of national initiatives love to hype up access as their main sign of progress. But this quote really hits the nail on the head. Providing access without literacy is like giving books to someone who cannot read. Just throwing hardware at a problem without teaching critical thinking, digital ethics, or cybersecurity awareness, well, that just creates an illusion of inclusion. It's a false equality without any real empowerment. And that brings us to the third level, the participation divide. This is all about the actual outcomes, the real-world benefits users get from being online. Actually, if you're watching this explainer right now, you're likely sitting right at the top of this divide. You are actively accumulating what researchers call digital capital. You're using platforms for education or entrepreneurship or civic engagement. Meanwhile, others out there, even if they have access and basic literacy, might be functionally limited to just passive entertainment. Let's move on to part three, policy rhetoric versus reality. So on paper, governments and international bodies like the UN sound incredibly progressive. Their rhetoric is absolutely packed with visionary frameworks and inclusive buzzwords like leave no one behind. Sounds great, right? But when we look at the actual reality on the ground, the contrast is stark. Implementation usually relies on these top-down, centralized, bureaucratic models that completely ignore local contexts. Instead of genuine community co-creation, we mostly get tokenistic engagement. Those symbolic, check-the-box consultations that don't actually transfer any real power to the marginalized groups who need it most. Research highlighted here points to a massive systemic barrier holding us back: institutional fragmentation. Basically, our policies suffer from bureaucratic silos. Meaningful inclusion requires everyone to work together as an integrated front, but instead, sectors like health, education, and infrastructure are all just operating completely independently. And that totally prevents the kind of holistic strategy we absolutely need to bridge all three levels of the divide. All right, let's wrap things up with part 4, designing true digital inclusion. So, what's the fix? How do we shift from this narrow, infrastructure only mindset to a truly human centered digital ecosystem? Well, we need interventions across 3 main areas. In education, we need lifelong digital literacy frameworks, embedded from early childhood all the way through adult learning. For governance, we've got to move to community centric digital hubs, empowering the local actors to design initiatives tailored to their own specific needs. And for infrastructure, we need sustainable public-private partnerships that actually guarantee affordability and long-term maintenance. To really protect the most vulnerable, we have to look forward at future innovations. Governments absolutely must rely on data-driven, evidence-based planning using real-time monitoring tools. We also need resilient strategies. Why? To ensure communities can keep their access to vital services during future crises, or what researchers call digital shocks. Plus, we need transnational collaboration to align global standards. And honestly, perhaps most importantly, we need intersectional equity audits. This makes sure policies are actively reaching marginalized groups, like rural populations, the elderly, women, and persons with disabilities. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on. Are we truly empowering society with our current public policies? Or are we just building faster networks for the privileged while leaving the marginalized permanently locked out of meaningful participation? It's a huge question, and one we literally must keep asking as we navigate this incredibly rapid digital transformation. Thank you so much for joining me to decode this critical issue today. Stay curious and keep asking those big questions.